The Alternative to Globalism. There is not one but two worlds and two realities. Those who look for more will not find them. Those who think there is but one are globalists. These deniers of the two-reality hypothesis are antichrist and unbiblical. Regardless of how strange this hypothesis sounds to you or what reasons you give to discredit or disqualify the claim, no one can disprove it, not biblically and not philosophically. The claim, there are two realities, can be substantiated with a small amount of reading and thought. But to prove it requires disconnecting from the globalism of this world and its narrative. The point is that globalism cannot be fixed from within its agenda. You can think you are on the right or the left, but which side you are on is immaterial to the problem of globalism. Your actions are at best slowing the globalist agenda down, at worst contributing to the problem. The one thing we can be sure of, your actions will not reverse the trend towards globalism, let alone eliminate it. This is not a conventional war. We are not faced with a physical enemy. There is no field of battle we meet the Antichrist on. The war is a battle of ideas. The key concept in the enemy's arsenal is democracy. The people have no right to rule, but evil is predicated on the belief we do. The people have no right to rule what belongs to God. There is only one response for Christians to make, and it is twofold. We have to get out of the system that leads to globalism, and we need to slam the door behind us. Eliminating democracy and its variants is technically not difficult. We only need to stop feeding the beast. This calls for a biblical Christianity. We need a church we control directly, but more importantly, a church that is separated from the globalist system. Blocking globalists from our jurisdictions is the hard part and requires a systemic approach. This is why we have to get out from the globalist system in the first place. If all we do is have an election and remain under the power of the beast, we will remain part of the system. Democracy is the thin edge of the wedge. It is voting to give our conscience over to the state that gives an opening for evil to take control of us. At the heart of democracy is the agreement we make to put ourselves under a globalist authority. Democrats confuse the issue by claiming the only alternative to the power of the people is the power of the autocrat. This is a false dichotomy, since democracy is the mob expressing itself through an autocrat. Democrats console themselves with the thought that if things do not work out, the elected representative can be changed for a different one. This was also the argument used to replace monarchy with democracy. One might do well under a monarch, but there was no guarantee and no way to remove royalty other than death. Presidents and prime ministers could be removed by an election, assuming the political leader was willing to have elections and abide by them. But once a politician was elected and invested with power, there was not much that prevented him or her from becoming an autocrat. Even if the ruler permitted elections and abided by the results, for the 4 years in power, rulers have few restraints on what they do. The mob does not pose a threat to a tyrant, because the mob is often friendly to the policies of the tyrant. What the state and the tyrant needs is open access to the wealth of the world. Parasites need more than access to land in its raw state. Despite the idea that the world is ideally suited for life, nature is not friendly to human life, not in its raw state. What we use has to be processed, whether we are talking about food or shelter or clothing. Clothes are not even something animals need. Humans are, in this sense, dependent on their ability to process nature into usable products. This requires organization. Admittedly, man can survive in a subsistence culture, and he can eke out a living on the basis of craft manufacture, but civilization requires a high level of specialization. State power requires access to the wealth we create. We are the means to the state as an end. Adam Smith was the first to explain how complex tasks broken down into its components enabled production to increase many-fold. However, this kind of specialization at the highest level requires technology. Conveyor belts that bring the work to the workstation enables higher outputs than when the worker has to go to his job. But this thinking hides another kind of problem. Capitalism and communism are considered to be two very different ways of organizing labor. Yet they have a crucial feature in common. Communism and capitalism both have employers and employees. Both split the production process into an administrative elite and a laboring class. Marx felt labor was alienated from his work because the worker never got to own what he produced. Neither communism or capitalism are biblical. Dominionism is ownership of the church by those who build the church. The true owner is not the people nor the investor but the church builder, the one who adds value to the world. But not all work is created equal. Not all human activity adds value. Management is a class of employment, so is social work and government employment. But work is not just the expenditure of energy. A truck sitting and idling is not doing any work. A group of government employees calculating how much money to take from workers are not themselves doing any work. If all they are doing is forcing workers to subsidize parasites, their actions result in a net loss to the economy. If we view globalism as the ownership of the most powerful, globalism is also the creation of a single hierarchy. Globalists redistribute wealth to maintain the power of the center. If the system is not entirely globalist, there still being national governments, the drive will be to make the nations more integrated. Different treaties and international organizations will be created to allow for greater assimilation. This will strengthen globalism. All international organizations help push national governments towards a single one-world government that owns and controls everything. The church is not compatible with the state or the power of the people that gives rise to the state. But the church has become compromised and largely incorporated into the globalist agenda. The church was supposed to be separate from the state. The church was supposed to be governed by those who do works of faith. The church is governed by faith and designed to produce works of faith, not serve as the handmaiden of the state. The church has a higher purpose than that which is decided by the state. The state exists for his own purpose. This existence for its own sake defines the state as an idol. Man exists to serve the interests of the state. God is pushed aside to make the state the central concern. The church exists as a vehicle through which believers achieve perfection. Man under God exists in his or her own right. We are not a means to an end defined by an authoritarian. We are perfected by our willingness to create value for God, using what belongs to God. Dominion is the rule of the perfected. These are the ones who create value in the church, as the church, for the church. Our purpose as Christians is to seek perfection from within the church, for only in perfection can we fulfill our purpose and realize our full potential as Christians. Christians own what we produce because specialization is the path towards which civilization trends. We are not a means to an end, we are the end. Our end cannot be a means to the end of someone else. No one has a right to what we create because we can own only what we create. Rulers have no right to own anything or to have power over anything because they do not create anything. By claiming what they did not create, they cause oppression, a condition within which we exist for the benefit of others. The oppressed have to value other than what they do for the oppressor. We are made in the image of God. Our glory belongs to us. This is our right, the right of dominion. We pay no one who has not added value to what they have, because they have no claim over what they did not create. Rights cannot be stolen or borrowed. No one has a claim on anything they did not create. This is logical and it is sustainable. It is only if we implement 2 Thessalonians 3 verses 10 to 13 that globalism will finally be defeated. The one world hypothesis is the engine that drives the globalist agenda. In this understanding, there is only one reality and everything in it is governed by a social agenda defined by the regulatory authority. Every human is subject to the higher authority. Humans are, in the one world hypothesis, made a means to the globalist end. The amount of property one controls defines the level of one's power, in the globalist paradigm. Wealth and power determine your place in society, within globalism. But above the national level, the only way power can be increased is through war. Business only takes you so far, because ultimately it is the state that has the final authority over the nation's resources. Membership in an international organization gives one a lot of prestige but not much actual power. So long as the nation remains sovereign, globalism is limited in power. So long as the people vote in national governments, there is not much the international agencies can do. Therefore, to acquire more power there has to be a single agency over the world, embedded in a single hierarchy. At the top of this international system is one man with ultimate power over the planet. This is the archdemon, or Antichrist. Justice requires each person add value to the system. No one owes anyone a living. Prosperity is defined by per capita value. There is a threshold of value that has to be exceeded for specialization to occur. Everyone is required to increase